We, along with many others, thought it would never happen. Not this year, at least, perhaps next year. Trian Management, led by Nelson Peltz, looks like they just might be getting the win that so few ever saw coming. Folks, we're here to tell you that come Wednesday, as of right now, Nelson Peltz is in the lead. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pro Channel. We are happy to have you with us as we continue to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, helping us do so, Mexican Iron Man. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me, Pro. It's always a pleasure to be on your channel talking about things that are important to the culture curve.
You are fresh off the greatest rant in the entire history of this channel, Mike. The folks at home, they are counting on you to deliver once more. What are you going to deliver on? Well, you're going to deliver on this. It's an article out of That Park Place, the little website that could. Wall Street Journal reports Nelson Peltz may lead in votes for Disney board seat. This one just coming straight out of the newsroom. Here's what it says. A new report from the Wall Street Journal is a game changer going into Wednesday's Disney shareholders meeting. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Nelson Peltz may have a lead in votes as final ballots are turned in from across the spectrum of Disney shareholders. Though exact numbers have not been provided and the majority of votes may still be outstanding, the idea that Peltz is currently in the lead is a shockwave across the industry. And that's not all. Even as this was coming out, Neuberger Berman, another firm, is supporting Trian's slate, citing the company's succession woes as others back CEO Bob Iger and his strategy. Folks, not included in this article, but also happening in the last 24 hours, we had Seeking Alpha come out and say that Disney is shaky at its foundation. Unbelievable. Now, Disney, Mike, is saying that the leak of an early vote count was highly inappropriate and an attempt to sway the overall votes. I got to say, I think it's inappropriate too. Don't often side with the House of Mouse, but I think clearly leaking the votes, not good. But I don't know who wins as a result. I don't know how this plays out. It could be that people rally to Disney's call and now they say, "Oh my gosh, it's closer than I thought. I got to vote." Or it could go the opposite way. It could be that institutionalists look at this and go, "Oh, well, we never thought Peltz would be this close. We actually might vote for him now because he's not a fringe candidate." How do you see this playing out, Mike?
Well, I've gone through all the ups and downs of emotions as a longtime Disney watcher with you and other channels that I happen to guest on. And of course, as a Disney stockholder and the parent of an 11-year-old, I've been watching this drama unfold for several years now with great interest and selfish interest, not just financially, but as a dad. I want there to be a Disney, and I want there to be a family-oriented company.
That's the best kind of selfish, Mike. When you follow up that you're being selfish with "I'm a dad," I gotta take a little umbrage and say I'm not sure that's selfishness.
Well, I want to have these great experiences with my kid that I had when I was a kid, and someday my kid will be a dad, and I want to be that grandpa having those great experiences. And
I look forward to Abuelo Iron Man, by the way.
Thanks, Mexican Iron retired man. But with what we've seen with Disney in the last several years has been amply covered on this channel and all the colleagues that we have on other channels. Disney isn't on the path to be that company and provide those experiences. And so when Peltz emerged, I was incredibly optimistic. And then, of course, there's been many ups and downs. As on this channel, the announcement by people that Iger got in his camp, including George Lucas and others, were devastating blows. But in the last week or two, if we look back at the composite of the different advisory firms that have endorsed Peltz, I mean, Iger may have gotten a Disney granddaughter here and a George Lucas producer there, and even a Jamie Dimon here and there. But these advisory firms are really important because they are all compensated by investors. And I'm not talking about investors like me who have 100, 200 shares. I'm talking about in mutual funds. I'm talking about family offices, which are investment firms that take care of intergenerational wealth. So there's a lot of stock that's held there. So when an advisory firm like ISS came out, that was a thermonuclear thud for me. I got pretty hopeful when that happened. And now if we sit back and look at it, that's now what, 3, 4 different firms like this?
Oh yeah. It's been raining. And I think, Mike,
and each one of them, I'm sorry, I'm just going to finish this thought and then
please.
It's just as with each one of them has their own groups of clients that they service, whether they're family offices or they're mutual fund managers or hedge or whatever kind of fund managers they are, or stockholders. They all have their own constituencies. And so I've been watching this line up, and it's a lot like watching an election. You know, you get your endorsement by the Peace Officers Association, your endorsement by et cetera, et cetera. And that's what's happening, because when each of these advisory companies does this, they're taking groups of people and saying, hey, this is what we think you should do. And here's why this is important from a financial standpoint. The reason why it's important is these fund managers want to be able to say that their performance is tied to getting the best advice that they can from advisory companies. And so if they vote against a lot of these advisory companies with their shares and things go south, I mean, there's definitely a case to be made like, well, you know, your own advisor told you that, you know, Peltz was the way to go and you didn't support him. So there's more votes that in the beginning when this started, I thought it's just a bunch of people like me, you know, people that own a couple hundred shares here, a couple hundred shares there, 50 shares here, 1,000 shares there, that were in support of Peltz. But now what we learn is that in addition to the Ike Perlmutter and the Peltz group of shares, there are now advisory companies that are telling blocks and blocks and blocks of people. Now there's still lots of blocks that haven't voted. The huge institutional investors that hold, I guess, what, 12-14% of the stock, and others haven't voted yet. But the fact that Peltz is ahead now is an incredibly optimistic turn of events for me. I thought at best we would be close and get in the 30s or 40s. Now I think that the 30s may be a strong base, and the 40s and even the 50s might be in reach. And for this to get leaked out is kind of a big deal. As an accountant,
Really odd. Yes,
as a
really
guy who
rare
runs
this
an
would happen.
accounting and tax firm, and knowing that knowing that they've got an independent firm working on this, somebody on the inside told somebody that with a lot of credibility that in turn told the Wall Street Journal.
Who gains the most from that, Mike? Like, if we wanted to speculate on why someone would want to leak this, like who gains out of it?
I
Which
think
side
it's
is
on the
better off?
Peltz side. I got to say that it's on the Peltz side, because if Disney is the institutional coming from it, they've got a slate of board of directors that vote with Bob on everything unanimously all the time. They've got huge institutional funds that hold huge blocks of stock, well in excess of 10%. So for this to be leaked is sort of like a leak in the polls, where we've got our incumbent candidate, in this case Bob Iger, that should have this thing locked down with a slam dunk, because from where he's sitting, guys like Mexican Iron Man, like me, Mike, and others, we shouldn't matter in the aggregate, even with aligning ourselves with someone like Peltz. But the fact that this was leaked, now we got to look back at the clock, like I think you did on one of your videos. We got to go backwards and look at why some of these announcements were made. The George Lucas announcement.
Yeah.
And I think whoever leaked this, I think they the Disney folks, they're sweating bullets left and right, because otherwise, why would you do all these things?
Listen, Mike, when I saw the cartoon duck come out, that was the first time that I said, something here does not smell right for an easy Disney victory. And as much as I was saying, I was pegging that Peltz getting this seat this year was like a 20 to 30% chance, which is pretty darn long shot. And then I saw the cartoon duck come out. When I saw them try to teach people how to vote with a cartoon duck, I said, they are going after the low resolution, independent shareholders with very small shares. Why would they be doing that unless they're in real trouble? Then we had the George Lucas announcement. And by the way, that was only in the lead of the ISS statement by about 24 hours. Now, why does the ISS statement matter, folks? Let's take a look at this, Mike. You brought this up. It's in the article. ISS has essentially the power to shift the votes by about 33% of all the institutional investors. So to put that into better perspective, that's about 1/5 of all the voters out there, all the shareholders. It's about 1/5 that they are listening to ISS, and they'll move based on what they say. ISS is the same group that was essentially able to get rid of Eisner back when Roy, the nephew, had a problem with Michael Eisner. They actually put essentially Iger into the role he's in now. So for them to turn against him is astounding. Here's what Disney said when ISS turned against them. Disney released this and said, while we're heartened to see support for Michael Froman and ISS's recommendation to withhold on dissident directors Jay Rasulo and the Blackwell's nominees, we strongly believe that ISS reached the wrong conclusion in its recent report when it comes to adding Nelson Peltz to the board. This comes from Mark Parker, the big cheese in China himself. In contrast to Glass Lewis, ISS fails to acknowledge the breadth of perspective and expertise Ms. Lagomasino adds to the board. The strong recent performance and results overseen by the Disney board demonstrate our focus on long-term shareholder value creation and succession planning and our commitment to good governance. But after this, Mike, you're exactly right. There were big organizations that said, no, we're going with ISS now. And I wonder, do you think that this was a domino effect once ISS, which is massive, once they came out, do you think there was a domino effect across the other institutional organizations who said, we don't want to be on the wrong side of this. We want to have said, we back the right pony.
I absolutely do. You took the words out of my mouth. On top of that, I think if we take a 30,000 foot in the air approach and put yourself in the position of some of these people that work in these different advisory companies, they've seen what Disney put out in terms of its statements and its filings with the SEC. They've seen the Disney white paper, and guess what else they've seen? They saw the very comprehensive 140-page report that Nelson Peltz put out, the white paper, as he calls it. But it's really a strategic and tactical roadmap as to how to not only deliver shareholder value, but how to fix this company and restore Disney to that. Well, I mean, the restore the magic. That is the campaign. And that document, if I'm working in an advisory firm and I'm sitting back with my Stanford education, my Oxford education, I just take me and I put me in one of those firms, right? And I actually did go to the schools, but you take me and you put me there. And let's just say, instead of having my own firm, I'm working at one of these firms and I'm looking at the documentation that's been put forth. And I look over at the stock price. I mean, from a due diligence point of view, the case with Nelson is overwhelming. And I am heartened that at the end of the day, in a world where we've had a backdrop of nothing but ESG and DEI decisions by corporate America, which has just destroyed intellectual properties, destroyed the value of things that we've all loved for the last several decades, there's now hope in my heart as an investor and shareholder that at the end of the day, capitalism and good ideas and good analysis might just carry the day. And here's the other thing: even if Nelson doesn't win, the fact that he's gotten this close means two things to me. One is that he's not going to go away. He'll be back for another round. And number two, the heat is even that high because if Bob does win this and keep both Rasulo and Peltz off this board, and Disney does not fix itself, and Marvel does not fix itself at Star Wars, does not fix itself with the park, which we know it's not going to, because everything they've done the last year has been nothing but key jangling, then the water for Bob Iger as a lobster in that boiling water is going to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and it's going to make it, I believe, easier for Peltz to win, if not this coming week, in a week down the road.
And the battle really is for the succession, right? That's the whole idea. Mike, I want to show you this too before I ask you the big question of the day. But Seeking Alpha right here, when this came out, I don't know, about a week ago, I really felt the winds were shifting. And we'll just take a look at the summary alone. The title, of course, Disney Plus has foundational issues. But the summary really nails what we've been saying for a year or more. Disney Plus subscriber growth has plateaued, indicating a potential problem with the content library and a lack of new releases. What have we said? You can cut the content cadence like Bob has, but then how are you going to get people to come to the streaming service? The higher churn rate and lack of original shows on Disney Plus compared to Netflix contribute to the subscriber growth issues. Okay, so what's the higher churn rate and what's the lack of original shows? Well, folks, it's coming out with a ton of Star Wars stuff that nobody cares about. That doesn't hold on to subscribers. Disney's financial success relies heavily on Disney Plus, but the current strategy may not be sustainable for long-term growth. Investors should be cautious. And that's the other thing we've said, is the idea that Disney Plus is going to be the aorta, right, that sends all the nutrients out to the rest of the company. That's always been crazy, because Disney Plus is not doing what it needs to do to be that vital part. Now, Mike, what I want to go to you for the very big question is, many people, many smart people, are trying to get their head wrapped around, why would Disney fight so hard to stop one man, or at best two men, from being on a board of directors that is 12 people, So even if both of them win, they're a tiny minority of the company. We're not talking about Peltz trying to be the CEO. We're not talking about Peltz trying to be the CFO. We're not talking about Jay Rasulo trying to take over the parks. We're talking about 2 seats on a 12-seat board of directors under a very powerful CEO and Bob Iger, who controls the entire rest of the board like a monolith. Why have they fought so hard? What are they scared of, Mike?
I think they're scared of someone with Nelson Peltz's vast resources in terms of staffing and his acumen. And I'm afraid, and I think if I were well, I think Bob's afraid that they're going to find something that is not disclosed. I think they're going to find something that's going to reveal that the emperor has no clothes. And look, and things have gotten so bad at Disney, and this is to all of your viewers and everybody watching this video and your audience. We all know whether any of us are in the United States or we're overseas, whether we've got GEDs or PhDs, all of us can sit back and see that something's wrong with Disney, whether it's the TV, the movies, the theme parks, the pricing, everything. We all know it from every walk of life, every creed and color of we all know that there's something wrong here. And I think that if we can get Nelson on there, and this is what Bob doesn't want, I think finally the real deep-rooted problems that are buried within could be not only just found, but also fixed after they're exposed.
Hey, Mike, what's your favorite ride at any of the Disney parks?
Hands down, Haunted Mansion, even though it's not the most exciting. I also love in LA, the Indiana Jones ride. And I have not been to any of the Orlando Disney theme parks.
See, I love Spaceship Earth, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Rock and Roller Coaster. I
Well,
just
Big
wanted to ask you that.
Thunder Mountain Railroad was my all-time. I mean, it's Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. They used to be my favorites, but now as I've gotten older, I'm more of a Haunted Mansion kind of a guy.
The reason I asked, Mike, is you knew that right off the top of your head. And
Yeah.
I know the rides that I love. What I'm trying to say is you and I both, we cared about Disney, classic Disney, the Walt Disney Company. This is the Bob Iger Company. But
Yeah.
you and I love the Walt Disney Company.
Mhm.
And we want it to be successful again. We're tired of two-shower Bob Iger and what he's been doing to this company, which is reducing the IPs to having less value, investing more into Shanghai and Hong Kong than he does in Florida and California. And we're ready to go back to timeless tales. You and I love this company. We just
Yeah,
want
I
it to
mean,
be the
when I
company we love.
subscribed, when I signed up for Disney Plus, I had so naively a dream. And that dream was that my mom, grandma, me, my kid, all three of us would be enjoying everything that's been on every Disney release that's ever been released in theaters. I thought that would be intergenerational enjoyment of this stuff. And look, I inherited some shares that had a very low basis and climbed up, and then I rebought in, and I put 172 to 174, and I'm still holding on, and I'm completely upside down. If that's not the sign of someone that's hopeful and wants this company to get fixed, I don't know what is.
We're just not snorting the pixie dust, folks, but we're
No,
here to
sir.
tell you we're pulling for the realistic comeback of the company once people with common sense and a desire to return it to the sensible center are there once more. Mike, I want to thank you for coming on to the channel to talk us through this. It's a huge development, not the kind of lead in to next week that I was anticipating. I thought there'd be some, suspense around it, but gosh, to go into this knowing Peltz is actually in the lead and that he's gaining the traction that he needs with institutional investors, most of the votes coming in so far are from the individuals. So the investors who with the major power listening to stuff like ISS, they're not in yet. So that's going to be amazing to watch and see. Mike, can we anticipate that you'll be there for some of the coverage come Wednesday?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I most certainly will be there.
I had a feeling, folks. Don't miss out on the rants. And at the end of the show, we'll have all of the programming listed out so you know where to go for your live coverage come Wednesday of the Disney shareholders meeting, where once again, remember that calls are coming into Bob Iger from people, and we're not so sure. We're not totally sure that they get to screen every single one of them. Maybe a few will sneak through where he has to answer honestly. And boy, oh boy, won't it be interesting if he has to answer after acknowledging that Peltz has won the board. Not saying it'll happen, but it would be a heck of a day. Folks, drop a comment down below. That would make a heck of a day for us. Also, like, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms, and share this out on your favorite social medias. Folks, as we always say at the end of these, and I promise we mean it, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.